Houston, Texas area. We'll just say Houston area.
Yes, that's good enough.
Right. She's a boot camper, and she is a couples therapist who we've known for years. And I'm really excited to share her story with you, especially right now during COVID and the pandemic. This is not Erika's first rodeo through crisis and disaster. So how did we first meet? I'm trying to think. How long ago was it?
It's been a minute. 2015.
Okay. Where were you at in your practice then?
So I had not started my practice yet. I was working a contract job and then trying to build my website at night, not knowing like literally anything. So I spent like a couple hours every night, just kind of put that together. And then I did all the free trainings. And then I was like, well, I might as well set it up the right way to start with. So that's why I decided to invest in boot camp so that I could have all my processes in place and not make it harder on myself later.
So initially when you started, what were some of the biggest lessons for you that made a difference in your trajectory to where you are today?
Well, I really identified with the concept of niching, like right from the beginning, which I think is something I gained from boot camp. And so actually, even from the free trainings, like I was like, I bought into that idea. And I think that helped a lot because then people started knowing who to send your way right from the beginning. And you kind of stood out, I think, that way.
Yeah. Tell a little bit about your niche.
So then I was really focused on infertility, which I still do a lot of work around that. And then I work with couples, and I've always worked with couples. So high conflict couples, I used to get a lot, and still do that work. But I really like working with couples who are going through infertility or going through postpartum issues, new parents, things like that. And then, as you know, I'm adding minimalism and kind of a different direction and working through how I'm going to integrate that.
Yeah, that's the new kind of like addition. And I think that's the cool part, to have known you for so long and to have watched you grow and to add and morph and change as you personally change and grow too. And adding those passions into your practice has been really beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. So, before we hopped on this live, I was just saying how I remember your last crisis. And in our webinars, we've been sharing with people about how we've helped people through recessions and other kinds of crisis. And for you, it was a hurricane. So do you want to share a little bit about when that was and what happened?
Yeah, so that was Hurricane Harvey, would be August 2017. And so it was a hard time. Like I didn't perceive myself to be necessarily in an emergency, which you helped me later see a little bit differently. But there was one day we were stuck inside my neighborhood. We were stuck inside like 7 days. I think it was around maybe day 3 or 4. I was going a little stir crazy and feeling really helpless. And I remember posting into the boot camp group, into the community, saying, it's quite the experience seeing the rest of the country kind of doing what they were doing, going back to school and eating lunch and going to restaurants. And, we're in this like major crisis. And I described just kind of the emotional state I was in, just, kind of struggling with that idea. And, you hopped on and said immediately, hey, how can we help? How can we take tangible steps to help the community or help you or help your business?
Right. And then I remember you and I hopped on a call. And one of the things I remember from that call is you were talking about having savings and an emergency fund. And I said to you, this is an emergency. This is what you've been preparing for. Because you're like, I might need to use my emergency fund and this is terrible. And I was like, but that's why it's there.
Exactly.
Right. And
I tell that story all the time because I was really like, well, I have money, but like, you don't touch it. You were like,
except when your whole world is turned upside down by a hurricane. I mean, because for those of you who don't know, that was a very devastating hurricane, a lot of deaths. And it took, to be honest, having been in Houston recently, it still feels like it's not totally recovered from it per se. Like, yeah. And so having gone through that, how does that impact you now?
Yeah, I've really drawn a lot, gone kind of back to that experience during this experience. So it's actually helped me so much just feel more secure, right? That things are going to be okay. I was also seven, I don't know how many months, very
Oh,
pregnant
yeah, you were
at the
pregnant. I
time.
forgot about that. You were pregnant
Yeah,
during this. Mm-hmm.
yeah, during Harvey. And so, I wasn't taking on new clients
Mm-hmm.
already because I was only going to have 6 weeks or something left till maternity leave. So my caseload was just dwindling, dwindling. And I think when I came back, I had 2 clients the first week that I came back. Um, and I really viewed that as I'm gonna have to start over from scratch. That was the thought process I had.
Mm.
But then, I kind of realized, no, I'm not starting over from scratch. I already have my website. I already have my messaging. I already know how to get clients and how to work with people. And um, I'm not starting over. I'm just starting from where I am.
You're right. Yes. Uh-huh. Yeah.
So so
Mm-hmm.
that's helped me now, like, to
Mm-hmm.
feel like, okay, even if we, drop in our caseloads, or even if um we're just trying to figure out everything that's happening, like, it's all gonna be okay.
Right. I mean, what have you done in this case with working with couples to help them navigate moving to a virtual space?
Yeah, we've had to extend a lot of grace and be really creative. So,
Mhm.
depending on the age of people's kids or how that's all working, um, I've we had people, hey, it's okay to let your kids play on the iPad for an hour or watch a movie or be on Disney Plus or whatever it might be. Like, for the time that we're doing the session, you may need to go to your cars. Again, depending on the age of, your kids, make sure they're safe. Um,
Don't leave the infant in the house.
yeah, don't leave your 2-year-old in the house. Would not be smart.
Right. We get that. Okay.
But um yeah, we just, and then, working in different time chunks, so we may need to do 30 minutes here and 30 minutes later in the week.
Mm,
But there's just, like, lots of ways that we can be flexible.
right. And I think too, that is the creativity and the innovation piece of being in private practice versus if you're in an agency, you're going to kind of lock to their rules. And now you get to think outside the box with these couples, which I think that was the lesson from the first crisis, was like trying to think at like, how do we work around? So I remember, I can't believe I'm remembering this call with you as we're talking, because I have a terrible memory. Miranda has to remember everything for us, literally. But I remember us talking about like, what are some things you can do so that as you're moving into maternity leave? Because it wasn't like I need to get more clients in the midst of this. It was,
Right.
how do I not totally feel destroyed, and how to keep movement. And so you had like pre-created some content and things like that to kind of float you through this time until you came back to where you could really focus in right when you started. So it's like you were already starting to think of like, okay, what are the solutions and the ways to think outside of the box then? I remember like those wheels starting to turn once it was like,
Right.
oh, this isn't the end.
Yeah,
And I
which
feel
is
like,
how it felt at
yeah,
first.
yes, it
Yeah.
was I remember like how devastating it was. I mean, just like physically people losing, your family like lost things
Mhm.
and all of that. And I think um, what I've seen in you this time is a quickening to those solutions, like a
Mhm.
more ease and comfortable of like, hey, we work, like you said, extending way more grace.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Uh-huh. So I think first and foremost, your clients still need you in the midst of this. That's
Yes.
important. And it's about being flexible and creative in the way that we show up for them in a way that can still serve them. What are some of the other things you think help kind of crisis proof your practice? We talked a little bit about emergency savings,
Yeah.
that was helpful. Yeah. Anything else you can think of?
Yeah, I think it's not focusing so much on your numbers, like, right
Mhm.
at first. and trying to find new clients, or letting fear kind of take over, and then making too many concessions in your business model. For
Mm,
me, that's important.
I think that's such a great, oh, I love the way you say it. Not making concessions in your model. Right. So not
Yeah,
being
it's hard.
reactive.
Exactly.
So can you give an example of
um,
something that you wanted to do but didn't? Like what would have been a reaction that you're like, okay, no, we're not going to do that yet.
yeah, I don't know that I've done a lot this time, but I know like during Harvey, I was, had in my head, nobody's gonna have any money, right? Which everybody's gonna have to rebuild their house. Um, which a lot of people did, right? But not no, like not everybody, and
Right.
not every and not
Yeah.
everybody lost their income either, right? So I think it's taking like, that basic anxiety restructuring kind of idea of what's the evidence, like what's
Mhm.
the evidence that
Yes.
nobody's going to be able to afford our services, and it's not accurate.
Right. Yeah. Assumption, like creating a business based on
Mhm.
assumption is never,
Yeah. It's never a good idea.
no. Well, you can try it, but it's pretty exhausting because there's so many things to assume. And I I do remember that feeling from you when the hurricane hit of
Mhm.
like, now I'm you had like already assumed no one would want to continue to work.
Yeah,
Yeah. Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah.
have you
So
seen um have you seen Tiger King by chance?
yes, I have. Am I allowed to admit
There's
that on here?
I mean, yes, but there's the part where, the employee gets her arm like
Yes.
mauled, right?
Hmm.
And then he's standing there and he's like, I'm never gonna financially recover from this.
That's true. That's a good meme for COVID and therapy
Yeah.
practices. Yeah.
I mean, that's how I felt really,
Hmm.
last time. Like that's how I
Hmm.
felt like I'm this is the end, my practice is over.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's the thing about any crisis. When it immediately hits, it feels that way. But then as you go through it, dust starts to settle and you get a new sense of where things are. And like your area didn't recover immediately after 7 days. Let's just be clear. It wasn't like 7 days and things are good. It took a while before buildings were operational. All of these things. I mean, there are still houses that have not been fixed.
Yes.
So, it wasn't like some immediate recovery and done either, which we don't anticipate this to be that either. That, in end of May, man, that would be nice. That this is just all
Mhm.
over, kind of thing. But I think I just love learning from you and sharing your story with people because it is so important, like having that emergency savings, not being reactive, remembering that it's not all or nothing and that not everybody can't do therapy now, not everybody's gonna like lose their job, and all these kinds of things, kind of balancing that and just starting from where you are and not being reactive to numbers and
Yeah.
instead focusing on being of service and being flexible.
Mm.
Yeah, those are great lessons. And I mean, you're a boot camper. So what do you think you're going to use boot camp for? Because the next live round is in April this month. So what do you think is the focus for you this month as you kind of delve back in or deeply to your business? I know you're always working on it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me it's probably going to be website, because I am planning to add a clinician later in the year.
Mm-hmm.
And so where it's going to be redone. That's my
Mm-hmm.
goal.
Awesome. Ooh, I can't wait to see it. And I love
Yeah.
that you're still planning for the future. I think that that's important too in the midst of crisis,
Yeah.
to not lose sight, to not get stuck in this is how it will always be.
Yeah, I agree. And it kind of keeps you moving in a productive way
Hmm.
instead of like kind of getting sucked into all that fear and anxiety and
Hmm.
all the rest of it.
Yeah. So for anyone out there who's thinking about doing boot camp, would you say that to them if they're on the fence about like, should I do this or not?
Yeah, I would definitely say do it. Like it's the best decision I made for my business, and just um, I think one of the benefits I've seen too during this time is the community. And I commented to one of my friends who didn't do boot camp, but that in some of the other therapy groups, don't want to criticize any groups, in
No,
particular,
but
but
yeah.
yeah, I felt that they haven't been as supportive and as helpful as the boot camp group. And I sort of was commenting to her that it's really the only group I feel there's not been like all this other extra stuff or adding to anxiety or emotions are high or some judgments that have been going on. And boot camp really never has that. Like it's very, hey, here's my question, and people like go
Let's
right
get it
into
done.
solutions. Yeah,
Let's
let's
get
figure
it
it out.
done. Yes.
And she
Yeah.
was asking me, why do you think that is compared to some of these other groups? And we talked about, I think it's the culture that was set up from the beginning in boot camp, that
Mhm.
that's not what we're here for. We're here
Right.
to make our businesses and our lives like the best that they can be.
Yeah. And that the
So,
cheering, like we need to be positive, and it's not out of being fake or unreal, but it's out of being
right.
supportive, but also challenging. People will challenge you and say, "Hey,
Oh yeah.
are you sure that's
Yeah.
but it's only in the best interest of buoying up each other, because when we take care of each other, we take care of the mental health community. We're taking care of our clients. Like everybody wins. And so I love having you in the community. I love how you've vulnerably have shared what you've gone through. I just remember that crisis so much, and its impact on me as a coach too. And Miranda and I walking alongside we had Houston and Miami clients all really impacted by that, Florida and stuff. And that's why we want to help therapists be prepared regardless, financially prepared, but also mentally and emotionally prepared to handle whatever comes your way. Did I ever think that would include a global pandemic? No, but
Right.
the principles still apply, of everything you shared that you learned from the hurricane, it still is applying here. And
Yeah, absolutely.
I am so grateful to have you in the community and to share your story and to just share these lessons. And this is the value. This is what you get when you're in boot camp, is this kind of stuff too. So thank you, Erika, for sharing. If people want to check you out, what's your website?
ErikaLLtherapy.com. So
Awesome.
Erika with a K.
Oh, yes. That's a good clarification.
Yes, with a K.
With a K. So if you guys have questions about boot camp, if you have questions about coping in the crisis with what's going on in your practice, post them below and we'll be happy to respond. But also know this, Erika is not just an exception. She does do amazing work and she works hard on her business. But we really believe that we all can survive this. And I hope that you're encouraged by Erika's story, because I know I am, and other boot campers who are sharing as well. And we'd love to have you join us. All right. Until next time.
Thanks, Kelly.
Bye.